passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, everybody. Josh Brown here, back for another killer episode of Franchise Euphoria, and it's just me today. We have had an awesome run of a bunch of really fantastic interviews. So if you haven't heard the last several episodes, definitely go back and check it out. Had some really, really insightful interviews. But today it is just going to be me. And the title of today's episode is Can You Still Cook Fries? So we're going to dive into that a little bit here. But before we do, I just want to make an announcement for the Franchise Euphoria podcast. For quite some time now, we have been doing this 2 days a week. So when I first started this podcast, it was a 1 day a week podcast. And then I switched over to 2 days a week, thinking I could add that extra day. And I've done that for quite some time now. But what I really want to focus on is going back to 1 day a week on Thursdays and really adding some additional extra information in terms of some of the content that we're going to be doing, and there's some exciting things that I'm working on right now to really kind of take this show to the next level. But doing so is going to obviously add time and effort on my end. And so I think it's going to be better to just go down to 1 day a week. Hope that's okay with everybody, but that's going to be the way that we're going to do it. But we're going to be adding what I hope to be is some really, really cool things to come that I don't really want to speak about right now, but I'll just leave that as a cliffhanger. So today's episode is Can You Still Cook Fries? Now, why would I title this episode that? Well, of course there's a reason. I heard this past weekend on CBS Sunday Morning, which is a fantastic show on CBS, every Sunday morning from 9 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. There was an interview with the president and CEO of McDonald's, Don Thompson. I've never heard this guy before speak or be interviewed, and I was absolutely fascinated by his interview. So here you have a guy who is the CEO of the largest restaurant franchise in the world. They have over 35,000 McDonald's locations around the world. He grew up in Cabrini Green, one of the worst areas in Chicago, at least it was back then when he grew up, worked his way up through McDonald's, where he worked at several McDonald's in various capacities. I think he actually worked in every capacity that you can in a McDonald's, eventually owned, I think, one or several, and then just worked his way up the ladder. I think he's been with the McDonald's company for over 20 years now. But it was fascinating what they did in the interview is he just kind of popped into a McDonald's, which I guess he does from time to time, and just goes right back in the kitchen and just starts cooking away or helping out the people who are back there cooking. And he can still do the fries. He can still do the burgers. He can do every single aspect of the jobs that are part of what it is to run a McDonald's. And I just thought that was so fascinating. You know, here it is. You have the CEO of this big, huge company, and he knows how to do every single aspect of the job that's required for everybody across the board. And it really got me thinking in terms of people who are looking to go buy franchises and people who have these ideas of the kinds of businesses that they want to run. And the whole idea of can you still cook fries is really a metaphor for can you perform every job within the business that you want to buy? And is that actually important? And so I kind of want to dive in to that today. And I want to start with a story about another really impressive person who I recently had the great fortune of meeting. And this person is on the early stages of his career as opposed to Don Thompson, who I've never met, but obviously been in the game a long time, and as the head of McDonald's is a business veteran. Well, somebody recently reached out to me, and his name was Matt, and he's college graduate, used to work for a good firm in Chicago, I think doing some sort of consulting, but really fell in love with franchising and thought to himself that he wanted to buy a franchise restaurant. I think the particular restaurant that he was interested in was Zaxby's, and got talking to somebody who was an investor and also happened to own 40 or 50 franchise restaurants. And this particular guy said to Matt, he said, listen, if you're actually serious about wanting to become a franchise owner and a business owner someday, then you'll quit your job and you will go work for that franchise and start at the bottom, start at a cashier level and just work your way up and learn every single aspect of that business. And then come talk to me in a year or so from now. And by golly, that's what he did. So he leaves his job in Chicago, moves in with some family here in Indiana, and it just so happens that one of his neighbors I happen to know, and that's how they made the connection where he reached out to me. And I just got coffee with this guy, Matt, this past week, and what an impressive young man. He's now working within the franchise business, started as a cashier, now has worked his way up to shift manager, and I have no doubt that in due time will in fact own his own franchise, but he's doing it the right way. And that's the important part of this episode, is that there's really no shortcuts to any kind of success. You know, in franchising especially, a large percentage of people who own franchise businesses have never owned a business before. And I think that's a pretty well-known fact. But what I also find fascinating is that most of these newbie owners who end up buying a franchise, they've never worked in the other areas of the business. And we'll take a restaurant, for example. I mean, there's probably very few franchise restaurant owners that worked as a cashier unless the franchisor required it, right? I mean, how important is that to your success? How important is it to understand every single aspect of your business and to have actually done it to your success? Because the reality is, if you're the owner of the business, you don't really need to know how to be a cashier, right? I mean, you're not going to be doing that line of work. But to me, it's vital to not only being able to achieve success, but it also will help tremendously with your leadership skills, your management skills, and your total understanding of the business. And so I would encourage you that if you're looking to buy a franchise, if you're looking specifically at one kind of opportunity, if you've been able to narrow that down, get in the game a little bit before you go and buy it. You know, see if there's an opportunity. Now, you may not be in a position where you could go work as a cashier and do that for a while, but go volunteer at a store. You know, go to another location if there's one reasonably close to you, and see if you can sit in for a day and see what they do. I mean, get a real sense for what happens on a daily basis within the business. I think a lot of people make the mistake of just assuming that they know what's happening, but you really can't get the true flavor of what the business is like unless you're there on a day-to-day basis. That's the real value of going and working every single aspect of a job. It's not because you want to be doing that necessarily, but it's because it's integral. It's super, super important to the overall system that you're buying. And the more you can understand every aspect of the franchise system that you're interested in, the better you're going to be as an owner, and the better you're going to be as a leader, and the better you're going to be as a manager. And ultimately, the better you're going to be as an operator. And you will have a significant advantage over other business owners if you can become a great operator and a great manager of a solid brand. So if you can do that, you're going to have a good chance of reaching your dreams and hopefully having a successful business. Obviously there's other factors that come into play. We all know that, your location, territory, geography, economic climate. I mean, there's a whole host of other things that come into play. But are you willing to cook the fries? Are you willing to put yourself into a position that maybe the skill level is beneath where your skill level is, but you're not afraid to go and do that? You're secure enough with yourself that you know that ultimately you going to work that position is going to benefit you in the long term. So I would challenge you, if you're out there right now thinking about buying a business, thinking about making a move and transitioning, and do you fully have an understanding of what it is you're about to buy? Have you actually seen the business in its operations? Have you seen it during its working hours? Have you gotten in there? Have you gone in the kitchen? Have you cooked the fries? These are the things you got to ask yourself, and these are the details and the due diligence that you really need to go to if you want to make sure that you're going to make a good investment, or at least you want to be sure that you've gone through the process to give yourself a better chance to ensure that you're going to make a good investment. Well, hopefully this episode was helpful for you today. If you'd like a free ebook that I created called What to Know Before You Buy a Franchise, just hop on over to franchiseeuphoria.com and you will be sent to a landing page where you can put in your email, put in your name, and you will get a nice little ebook. And you will also become a subscriber to my weekly newsletter where I send out every single Monday. I send out stuff on the podcast, blogs, some extra tidbits, some jokes, a recommendation for a good book, all sorts of fun information for people in the entrepreneurial and franchise community. So hopefully this episode was helpful for you, and look forward to our next episode next Thursday, not on Tuesday, next Thursday. Thanks all. We'll talk then.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.